What started as a routine late-night interview turned into television chaos when Richard Gere called out Jimmy Fallon's fake persona live on air, leading to the most shocking guest ejection in talk show history. The Tonight Show's studio felt different that evening. Richard Gere, promoting his latest film, settled into the guest chair with his usual composed demeanor. But something was brewing beneath the surface. Jimmy Fallon bounced out with his trademark enthusiasm, flashing that million-dollar smile that had made him America's sweetheart of late-night television. "Richard Gere, everybody!" Fallon exclaimed, arms spread wide as the audience erupted. But Gere's polite wave seemed restrained, his eyes already carrying a weight that suggested this wouldn't be the typical softball interview Fallon was known for. The opening minutes played out predictably. Fallon gushed about Gere's new project, threw in some rehearsed jokes, and played his usual game of being everyone's best friend. But seasoned viewers might have noticed Gere's responses growing shorter, his smiles more forced. The veteran actor, known for his thoughtful approach to interviews, seemed to be studying his host with increasing scrutiny. "So, Richard," Fallon chirped, leaning forward with exaggerated interest, "tell us about working with the amazing cast. I bet you guys had so much fun together." The question was typical Fallon, surface level, designed more for entertainment than genuine conversation. Gere paused, longer than what would be comfortable for television. "You know, Jimmy," he said slowly, "I've been doing this for over 40 years, and I've noticed something about interviews lately." The studio audience sensed a shift. Fallon's smile flickered for just a moment, but he quickly recovered. "Oh yeah? What's that?" "There's this obsession with everything being fun and amazing," Gere continued, his voice measured but pointed. "Every project is the greatest thing ever made. Every co-star is your best friend. Every experience is magical. But that's not real life, is it?" Fallon's laugh felt forced now. "Well, we like to keep things positive here." "Do you?" Gere's question hung in the air like a challenge. "Or do you just avoid anything that might require actual thought or genuine emotion?" The camera operators exchanged glances. This wasn't going according to script. Fallon, clearly uncomfortable but trying to maintain his cheerful facade, attempted to steer the conversation back to safer ground. Well, let's talk about your character in the new film." "No, let's talk about this," Gere interrupted, something he rarely did in interviews. "I've watched your show, Jimmy. I've seen how you interview people who are going through real struggles, real pain, and you just giggle through it. You treat everything like it's a game." The audience was dead silent. "Now." Fallon's face had gone pale beneath his makeup, but he was still trying to play it off. "I just think people want to escape, you know? They want to forget their troubles." "By pretending they don't exist?" Gere's voice was rising slightly, his legendary composure beginning to crack. "I was on a show last month where the host asked me about Tibet, about the human rights abuses I've spent decades fighting against, real issues that affect real people. But here you want to know if I can guess what's in a box or if I want to play some ridiculous game." Fallon was sweating now, his usual quick wit failing him. "Richard, I think maybe we should—" "You think we should what? Laugh it off? Make a joke? That's your solution to everything, isn't it?" Gere leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I've been in this business long enough to recognize authenticity, Jimmy. And what you're selling isn't authentic. It's manufactured happiness, and it's insulting to your guests and your audience." The studio had become a pressure cooker. Producers were frantically gesturing from off-camera, but Gere was just getting started. Years of frustration with the dumbing down of discourse seemed to be pouring out of him. "You want to know what's really not fun?" Gere continued, his voice cutting through the tension. "Watching someone with your platform wasted on meaningless drivel while the world burns around us." Fallon's mask was finally slipping. The perpetual grin wavered as he tried to regain control of his own show. "Look, Richard, I think you're being a little unfair here. We entertain people. We make them laugh. You make them numb." Gere shot back. There's a difference between entertainment and mindless distraction. When I was your age, talk show hosts asked real questions. They challenged their guests. They created meaningful dialogue. You're content being a court jester, the audience was shifting uncomfortably in their seats. Some were filming with their phones, sensing they were witnessing television history. Fallon's producer was making frantic throat-cutting gestures from behind the cameras. But there was no stopping this runaway train. I don't think that's fair, Fallon said, his voice cracking slightly. I work hard to make people happy? Happy? Gere laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think reducing every human experience to a punchline makes people happy? I've met your fans, Jimmy. They're not happy. They're desperate for distraction from lives they can't stand. And you feed them cotton candy instead of substance. Fallon was visibly shaking now. For the first time in his career, he was facing genuine confrontation on his own stage, and he had no scripted response. I don't know what you want from me. I want you to be honest, Gere said, his voice lowering to a dangerous whisper. Just once. Tell your audience why you really do this show. Is it because you care about them? Or because you need their validation to fill some void in your own life? The question hit like a physical blow. Fallon's face went from pale to red, anger finally breaking through his practiced composure. You don't know anything about me, he snapped, his voice losing its affected cheerfulness for the first time. Don't I? Gere smiled coldly. I know you surround yourself with yes-men who laugh at everything you say. I know you can't handle even the slightest criticism without falling apart. I know you've built your entire career on being harmless, because being harmless means never having to take a real stand on anything that matters. That's not true, Fallon's voice cracked as he stood up, his carefully maintained image crumbling in real time. I've helped people. I've raised money for charity. You've performed, Gere interrupted, standing to match Fallon's height. Everything you do is performance. Even your charity work is just another opportunity to be seen as the good guy. When was the last time you did something meaningful that the cameras couldn't capture? The studio audience was completely silent now, transfixed by the psychological dismantling happening before their eyes. Crew members had stopped what they were doing to watch the confrontation unfold. Fallon's hands were trembling as he pointed at Gere. You can't just come on my show and attack me like this. This is supposed to be fun. People watch this to escape. And there it is, Gere said triumphantly. Your true philosophy. Entertainment as escape from reality. Well, let me tell you something about reality, Jimmy. It doesn't go away just because you refuse to acknowledge it. The climate is collapsing. Democracy is under attack. People are suffering. And your response is to play games with celebrities. I'm not a news anchor, Fallon shouted, completely abandoning his persona now. I'm not responsible for saving the world. No, Gere replied quietly, but you are responsible for how you use your influence. And you've chosen to use it for nothing. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Fallon's face went through a spectrum of emotions: rage, hurt, desperation, and finally, something that looked almost like recognition. But instead of introspection, he chose defiance. Get out, Fallon said, his voice barely above a whisper. Just get out of here. Gere raised an eyebrow. Excuse me? You heard me. Fallon's voice exploded across the studio. Get off my stage. This is my show and I don't have to sit here. And listen to this. This pretentious garbage from some washed-up actor who thinks he's better than everyone else, the audience gasped collectively. Several people in the front row were openly recording now, sensing they were witnessing the end of something. Gere's expression shifted from confrontational to something approaching pity. Washed up? Gere asked calmly. Jimmy, I'm still working, because I choose projects that matter to me. You're working because you're afraid to stop. There's a difference. "Security!" Fallon screamed, his voice cracking. "Get him out of here! Now!" Two large men in suits emerged from the wings, looking uncertain. They'd never had to remove a guest from the show before, especially not one who was sitting calmly in his chair while the host had a complete meltdown. Gere stood slowly, adjusting his jacket with dignity. "You don't need to call security, Jimmy. I'll leave. But before I go, let me ask your audience something." He turned to face the stunned crowd. "How many of you came here tonight hoping to laugh? To forget your problems for an hour?" Several hands raised tentatively. "And how do you feel? Right now?" Gere continued. "Entertained? Or do you feel like you've just witnessed something real for the first time in years?" The silence was deafening. Even Fallon had stopped shouting, watching this final act of his public humiliation unfold. "The truth isn't always comfortable," Gere said, his voice carrying to every corner of the studio. "But it's necessary. And Jimmy, the truth is that you've built a career on helping people avoid the very conversations we most need to have." Fallon's security team stood frozen, unsure whether to intervene as Gere walked toward the edge of the stage. "You want to know why your ratings have been dropping?" Gere asked, turning back to Fallon one final time. "It's because people are hungry for authenticity, and you're serving them artificial sweetener. They can taste the difference." With that, Richard Gere walked off the stage with the same quiet dignity he'd maintained throughout the confrontation. The studio remained silent for several long moments, the only sound being Fallon's labored breathing as he stood alone under the harsh studio lights. We'll be right back," Fallon mumbled into his microphone, but his voice was barely audible. The producers quickly cut to commercial, but the damage was done. Within hours, clips of the confrontation were trending across every social media platform. Gere's Fallon dominated Twitter, with most users siding with the veteran actor's critique of modern talk show culture. The incident sparked debates about authenticity in entertainment, the responsibility of media figures, and the difference between distraction and genuine connection. The Tonight Show's ratings plummeted in the following weeks, as viewers began questioning what they were actually watching and why. Fallon's once bulletproof image as America's harmless entertainer had been shattered in real time, replaced by the image of a man who couldn't handle even basic criticism of his work. Industry insiders whispered about Fallon's future, while Gere's career experienced an unexpected renaissance as younger audiences discovered an actor willing to speak uncomfortable truths. The confrontation became a cultural touchstone, referenced whenever discussions arose about the role of entertainment in society and the courage required to have difficult conversations in public spaces. In the end, Richard Gere had done what few guests had ever managed. He'd forced both a host and an audience to confront the difference between being entertained and being truly engaged with the world around them.